Hello and welcome to the first edition of the Morning Hoops NBA basketball podcast. I am Anthony Denu. You can find me on Twitter at Anthony Denu, and I am joined here on night one, as I will be hopefully every night, by Kyle McKeown. You can find him on Twitter at RotoKyleNBA. How are you doing tonight, Kyle?
Doing groovy. How are you, brother?
Doing groovy as well. Groovy is a good way to kick things off. Let's tell you a little bit about the show. The idea is that we're going to give you guys NBA news, reviews, and previews to keep you updated on what is going on in the NBA today, tomorrow, and just keep you in the loop of all things going on with the news, fantasy, anything that you might be interested in. So, Kyle, should we kick things off with things that happened Sunday in the NBA?
Yeah, let's get right into it like we hope to do every single show. There were 6 games on Sunday, so let's do it.
Yeah, and before we get to those 6 games, we want to talk about the news of the day. Some ring controversy. The Toronto Raptors. Kyle, this is common in sports where I think you see this in other sports, not just the NBA, where a team may trade a player mid-season and then goes on to win the championship, and that player, even though they weren't on the playoff roster or certainly not in the championship, they often get a ring, kind of commemorating them for being a big part of the season, getting some wins, helping them in a playoff push, whatever it might have been. But apparently that's not the case here with the Toronto Raptors and 3 of their players that were involved in the Marc Gasol deal.
Yeah, there was an article from Mike Ganter on the TorontoSun.com, and it pretty much detailed how Jonas Valanciunas, DeLon Wright, and CJ Miles were not going to get or are not going to get championship rings from the Raptors, even though they were on the team until the trade deadline essentially last year. I guess, how do you feel about this? Do you think it's there has been precedent in the past of some players getting rings even though they had left the team or been traded away during the championship season? So how do you feel about this? Because, some people looked at this situation with Valanciunas, DeLon Wright, and CJ Miles not getting rings. They were like, well, where does it stop? Do you then give DeMar DeRozan a ring since he was with the organization for so long and helped build up who they were? And that's kind of a decent point or a decent argument to put forward, but it's a lot different from the perspective that Valanciunas, DeLon Wright, and CJ Miles were actually on the roster last year during their championship season.
So I got a couple takes on this. It's something that's become sort of commonplace in sports, so I've become used to it or numb to it, but I'm not necessarily a huge fan of it. I think if you're injured during that season and you're still that season with that team, you certainly should get an NBA a championship ring. I don't necessarily think that if you get traded away that you necessarily deserve it. However, if we're going to talk about anybody, whether it be the 3 players mentioned, Valanciunas, Wright, and Miles, in addition to DeRozan, what do you think about Dwayne Casey? Is he not more deserving than any of them to get a ring?
Man. Yeah, see, and that's just it. When you do get further down the line, you start to get to a point where you feel like, okay, we've jumped the shark, or it's just too much. We're trying to be too polite. And the fact of the matter is, they weren't on the team when they won the champ. These people weren't on the team when the championship was won. So, yeah,
I'm cool with it. Honestly, I am. You could be a little bit bummed for Valanciunas, who apparently got a text message from Kyle or Lowry saying that what is your ring size?
Yeah, yep.
That's on Lowry, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean that's not. I mean that's like if we were on in a thing together and that I won an award after the fact and I called you up and I said, hey man, I hope that they do that. You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm sure those guys are friends. Right. They played together for a few seasons. So I think one of the more interesting aspects of the article is the fact that Mike Ganter detailed the different rings that the Raptors bought, and essentially with this process, the Raptors had 5 different tiers of rings that they gave out, where like 20 of them were the super ostentatious ones that went to the players and the certain people in the organization. Then there was a lower tier for other people, and then like the lowest tier was for certain fans that got, were just like long time fans of the team and whatnot. So, and other people in the organization. So from that perspective, the fact that there are 5 different tiers of rings that were created, I don't know how much the lowest tier costs though either. So I mean, it's not my money, so it doesn't really. Essentially, what I'm trying to illustrate is that there's definitely an argument to say that Valanciunas, in particular, since he was with the organization for so long, I think maybe should have gotten some recognition in that regard. But ultimately, he wasn't on the team, so I have a hard time getting up in arms about this issue. You weren't on the team when they won the championship, and definitely don't want to give one to DeMar DeRozan because they never would have won a championship if they didn't trade him to get Kawhi. So that one seems moot to me.
If you're Valanciunas, is your big argument that the super fan got a ring, but I didn't?
That's pretty stupid, isn't it?
Yeah, that's pretty bad.
I mean, no, just in comparison, I think it's awesome that I think it's fine that the fan got the ring. Like, whatever, who cares if he's important to the franchise, if he's important to other fans, if he's a positive influence on that organization and that whole ambiance around the team, then shoot, why not give Drake a ring? I'm sure he got one.
You could certainly view him as a symbol or a mascot of sorts.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, that kind of wraps up the news for the day outside of the actual in-game action. So let's move on to the first game of the day.
I got one more comment on that.
Okay, bring it on.
I mean, it is the only Canadian team right now. Should they just give every single person in Canada a ring?
Yeah.
Okay.
All right, that's fair. Is that
except Valanciunas?
Oh, okay. I think top tier rings for all actual Canadians.
Okay.
All right, let's get to some of these games of the day. The Sixers wallop the Cavs 114-95. We're going to bring up a little box score action here. Kyle, anything particularly noteworthy in this game? This one was kind of a dud from the get-go.
It was a big blowout for the most part. Kevin Love, he passed up an open 3-point shot to put the ball on the floor, go to the rack, and then he got hit and landed awkwardly. His right leg kind of fell underneath him and twisted, and he was grabbing at it. It was scary for a second, wondering if he had maybe injured himself and was going to be out for the season. But Love ended up getting up after the initial shock and fear of the situation hit him, went to the bench for a moment, came back, hit his free throws, and stayed in the game. So should be okay for Love on Monday's game, but we'll see. We'll see. I think they're calling him probable at the moment.
Yeah, he had 12 and 6 in 25 minutes. Really, other than that, nothing too exciting in this game. Tobias Harris had a plus 23, but
no, I mean, it's going to be hard to take away a lot from this 76ers Cleveland game just because it was such a blowout. I mean, it was pretty much over at halftime, and then Cleveland got, they went on a bit of a run in the fourth just because the teams had emptied their benches. Matisse Thybulle got some run at the end of the rotation. He's kind of been out of the rotation for the Sixers lately. I know he's an interesting guy for everybody because of how gaudy his defensive stats were in college, and then how interesting Thybulle's defensive stats were in the preseason and the start of the regular season, but he kept getting in such big foul trouble that the Sixers just decided to take him out of the rotation. And now we've seen Furkan Korkmaz getting a lot of run as like essentially the sixth man for the Sixers. So that's been interesting to watch.
Cavs are they the worst team in the Eastern Conference?
The worst team in the Eastern Conference. I don't think you can put anybody there other than the Knicks, really, just because the Knicks are such in such disarray in a lot of ways, and it's hard to trust that the people in charge there have any idea how to build a winning team. Whereas with the Cleveland Cavaliers, at least we've seen them do some interesting things. Kevin Love being relatively healthy to open the year. I like that they decided to start Darius Garland right from the beginning of the season, even though they have Colin Sexton there. I think it's stupid that they drafted 2 small guards to play next to each other, because you don't go into a team building situation trying to build what Portland has with 2 small guards in the backcourt. Portland just happens to be in a wonderful situation where those two players, and Damian Lillard and CJ McCollum, are top tier guards. You can't expect that from Colin Sexton and Darius Garland yet. I mean, especially Colin Sexton. I just don't see it. He doesn't do enough beyond trying to get his own bucket. He can't set up other people. It's and you can't look to either of these guys to be big defensive players in pretty much any respect.
Yeah, it's going to be a number of years, I think, before the Cavs get out of the lottery. But yeah, the drafting two of the same similar sized and positioned players is not a great look.
Well, and it was just weird too, because Colin Sexton defied a lot of people's expectations as a rookie. And, I think he shot 40%. I believe he shot 40% from 3-point land as a rookie. And that was one of the things that everybody looked around and said, there's no way this guy needs to work on his jump shot. He's not, what are you going to get from him? He's just a rim attacker. But we saw him shoot well last season. So that builds up your hope for Colin Sexton to be more than what maybe his size would lead you to think he could be. But it's this roster looks a bit doomed. I wish they would stagger these 2 point guards a lot more than they're doing right now. We saw Matthew Dellavedova has been coming in as the primary backup at point guard. Due to the blowout, we got to see some more Brandon Knight in this game. But ultimately, I would hope that we start to see Garland and Sexton staggered more, because how are they helping themselves on defense by having them out there together all the time as well? I mean,
there's a possibility this was to trade one of them eventually too, similar to how the Warriors, signed D'Lo. But I was wondering, do you think that Sexton's one of his greatest influences, Qui-Gon Jinn?
I have no idea who that is.
That's Liam Neeson's character in the first episode of Star Wars.
Qui-Gon Jinn.
Qui-Gon Jinn. That's what I said.
It sounded like Gwai. I was like, who's Qui-Gon Jinn?
I definitely said Gwai.
On Locked On Fantasy Basketball, Josh Lloyd calls him the Padawan because of that dumb rat tail that he had. Yeah. I mean, not dumb. Whatever, man. Everybody has their own style.
Yeah. It's great. I can see you're a big fan.
Yeah.
Okay, let's move on to game 2. This one was quite a bit more exciting, and any excitement would have been better than the first game. But the Kings beat the Celtics 100-99. Marcus Smart had a jumper rim off at the end of the game. This was this one could have gone in, could have gone out. It was very similar to not the amount of bounces that we saw in Kawhi against the Sixers last year in the playoffs, but it had that kind of feel to it, that it just seemed like it was on the rim forever and ever. The shot did not drop, and the Kings win at home.
Yeah, brutal night shooting for Marcus Smart. Just 2 of 16 from the field, 1 of 8 from 3-point land. I wasn't actually watching this game at the end. I did see the clip of him dribbling in, throwing up the floater, it rimming off. And you can see the Celtics bench reaction with like, oh no. So which was fun, but you kind of wonder, like, why was the ball in Marcus Smart's hand at that point in time? I know he had 9 assists and he can do that, but like, why if you're looking for a shot to win the game at that point, you probably don't want to go to the guy that's 2 for 15 at the moment.
Right. And this was kind of Kemba's decision. The play looked like it was originally designed for him, and he kind of dribbled around and it ended up in Smart's hand. I don't know if it was a handoff in the corner or whatever, but it looked like it was originally designed for Walker, but just didn't end up that way. So what do you think about the alternate courts and jerseys that did you see that today?
Yeah. I love it. I love the alternate courts for the Kings and the throwback jerseys. Yeah, really nice.
All fun stuff. I've never been a huge fan of Nike, but the stuff they've done since they've taken over the NBA jerseys has been awesome, and I think well received by most everybody.
I'd say about half the jerseys are good and half are kind of just like meh. But with the alternate courts that some of the teams do, I really like. As soon as we saw the Bucks do one where they did that like blackout court,
yep,
I don't know why every team didn't see that and go, holy crap, that's a great marketing decision. You know, you're going to draw in people. You know, you're going to appease a lot of the. I mean, the NBA is a style league. Everybody, it's a sneakerhead league. It's a rappers league. It's a style league. The all these young cats that are in the league post on Instagram and just some ridiculous outfits. So it's I love the idea of having more of these special courts, and I hope that the league continues to push out that. Also, they should just have like an array of jerseys that they're able to do, and they should start having I don't know, maybe they should start having fans influence in some respect, because it frustrates me to no end that we don't get to see more of those. Like, I mean, some people would consider them gross, but a lot of those jerseys from the 90s that were just super colorful, they almost looked like a t-shirt that you'd get from a local department store, because it just had this big image on it on the front, whether it was a deer or the Pistons flaming horse.
Sure, the Hawks.
Yeah. So,
we'll have to talk. Find a good jersey segment for us in the future.
What do you think about the center rotation for the Celtics between Daniel Tice, who's starting, and then Enes Kanter and Robert Williams, who had that 6-block game a few games ago, but has been limited a little bit by a sprained ankle of late?
Williams and Taco Fall are the only two people that I want to see playing center for the Celtics, just for entertainment purposes. But as a Bucks fan, I'm certainly not rooting for the Celtics. But as an NBA fan, those are the two that I think create the most excitement around the league, have the better or have potential. Like, we already know kind of what the other two do. So that's a big part of it too, finding out what we really have in Taco Fall and Williams.
I don't think that I'm not a big believer in Taco Fall. I think he's just kind of a big body, and that can work sometimes. But as we see with, like, Taco Fall is not as talented as Boban Marjanovic, and Boban can't stay on the floor, because if a team puts out a smaller lineup with a center like Montrezl Harrell out there, it's goodbye, son. Like, they're running on you all the time.
Yeah.
And that's what you see from why Boban can't stay on the court. So I kind of worry about that with Taco. It's just as far as the center rotation for the centers, Enes Kanter, not a big fan of him. I just don't like centers who can't play defense. I feel like rim protection's one of, like, that's your role. Unless you have a staunch defender at power forward to help make up for something that's missing there at center. Like,
and they don't really have that. They're the people, the guys who get a lot of power forward minutes for the Celtics are more like finesse wing players. So you're not really getting rim protection from anybody else, and Kanter is certainly not going to provide that for you.
Exactly. So I mean, I'm fine with Kanter being in a limited bench role if you need buckets and you don't have a lot of scoring off the bench. But in the same respect, the Celtics have such a wide range of ball handlers and scorers and distributors that I don't know why you wouldn't just stagger Jaylen Brown, Marcus Smart, Kemba Walker, Jason Tatum, and Gordon Hayward to the point that you always have two of those guys on the court at all times, and then never have to play a guy like Kanter, he's just going to create problems for you that you got to fill holes on. And I don't want that. I would rather have Robert Williams out there making mistakes, but also causing chaos for the other team.
Yeah, we'll see how that all develops. But any other final notes on Kings and Celtics from today?
Buddy Hield scored a game-high 35 points, also a season high for him. Just a tremendous game, 14 of 24 from the field. Did all of his scoring without going to the free throw line once. So that was super interesting to see. Rashawn Holmes has that starting job nailed down for the Kings. That's been kind of fun to watch. He hasn't necessarily... One of the interesting things about Rashawn Holmes was when he was in those limited bench roles, whether it was on the Sixers or on the Suns last season, he would put up this just crazy per minute production. But now, as we've seen him play more minutes, and the fact that he needs to stay out there and conserve his energy more, his production's down per minute, but you're still seeing him make an impact on the game, which is fun. He actually picked up his third foul midway through the second quarter, and Coach Walton decided to stick with Rashawn Holmes and let him stay out there, and he did well. He was able to stay on the court for the whole game, so that's great.
I know you're not a big fan of Luke Walton. I know you call him Luke Walmart. What's a couple things that he could improve? Because he's a young coach, so he can certainly get better. But what are those couple things that you would like to see him improve?
I mean, the biggest issue I had with him in the past was his rotation on the Lakers, mainly with how he handled his centers. He when he had Brook Lopez, he only played him like 23 minutes a night, and that was frustrating to watch because now we see what Brook Lopez has been on the Eastern Conference best team from last year and likely the best Eastern Conference team from this year, and I mean that from the regular season perspective, with the Bucks. They play Brook Lopez big minutes. He gets huge block numbers. He gets big three-pointers numbers. He's used correctly. And the fact that Luke Walton or Luke Walmart couldn't notice that when he had Brook Lopez, who is from California and who wanted to play for the Lakers, but once the Lakers did him dirty and Luke Walton did him dirty with the just ridiculously poor minutes distribution in the 1 year that he was there, Brook Lopez was like, nope, I'm going to go sign a low contract to go play with Giannis in Milwaukee. And like, I don't think Bucks fans know how blessed they were to get Brook Lopez last year, but yeah.
Worked out better than anyone could have imagined, especially with him re-signing.
But how great would the Lakers look right now if in addition to Anthony Davis and LeBron, they had Brook Lopez at center instead of JaVale McGee or that rerun of Dwight Howard. And I know both guys are playing okay from some respects. I know Dwight Howard's having a good season, but neither one of those guys is Brook Lopez. And I know that's going to make some people go, what? Brook Lopez isn't as good as Dwight Howard. And it's just like, yeah, maybe not at Dwight Howard's peak, but from the perspective of today's game, stretching the floor and guarding the rim, Brook Lopez is way better than Dwight Howard.
All right. Let's move on to our next game. Let's see. We're going to go to the Magic and the Wizards. And the Wizards lose this one in Orlando. Markelle Fultz is going to be my story from this one. The Magic won 125-121. Markelle Fultz was 2 of 3 for 3 points. What do you think about? Is this just a small sample? Who cares? Or is this actually a story?
We're still seeing a timeshare at point guard between DJ Augustine and Markelle Fultz. Fultz is starting. But the funnest thing from this game, from the Wizards and Magic game, was near the end of the game, the Magic were up 3, but the Wizards had the ball. Fultz made an awesome steal, took it all the way down the court, threw down a great dunk as Davis Bertans fouled him. So it just sealed the game away. It was a wonderful moment for Fultz, who's had a lot of pitfalls in the NBA so far. So it was fun to see people celebrating Markelle Fultz for once. And he definitely deserved it. And as you pointed out, he was 2 for 3 from 3-point land. The only time he went to the free throw line was there at the end of the game. He hit that. Stroke looks good there. His percentages have been way better than people would have expected this season from both the field and from the line. He was 8 of 10 from the field in his 26 minutes. Just a lot to like about the potential for Fultz this season if he continues to go for it. Tonight's definitely a good night, and it looks like he's gonna do it. Like he's gonna be a consistent good starter in the NBA, and that's fun. And that's not just talking about his performance tonight. That's not conflating it. He's looked good all season. But in fact, I think he's ready for more minutes, and that's what we really need to see next is can Fultz play big minutes and help the Magic win, and that's what we're going to have to see next. But I don't know how long it's going to take for DJ Augustine to get shaved down more out of the rotation, because it certainly seems like they like to have his steadying veteran presence out there a lot.
Yeah, I think Fultz's play was maybe the play of the day. I'm not sure there's another one I could put above it, but I want to see him do well. I mean, just as a basketball fan, he's only 21 years old. He hasn't turned 22 until May. I don't see him as a bust yet. I think he can still be a very productive player, and Orlando should give him every chance he can handle to improve on a pretty reasonable level and arc with their team not likely to compete for a championship either of the next 2 years at least. So
yep. Well, it's good to see the Magic get a win too with Jonathan Isaac being out after he was such an important part of their defense to start the season. The Magic are just they've struggled to start this year too after being a playoff team last year, but even at just 6-7, they're still at the 7th spot in the East right now. So looks like everything's, there's you probably, as long as you're in the playoff conversation right now or holding down a playoff spot to open the season, even if you're under 500, I'm sure that gives you somewhat of a peace of mind about staying the course as far as the Magic are concerned.
Yeah. And I guess my notes from the Wizards side of things, you had Beal and Bertans both hit 5 threes. Other than that, not much going on. The Wizards, to me, even though they have some fun young players, they're one of the most boring teams from my league pass perspective.
Yeah, it's hard to see who's going to come out of their team and be like an all-star someday. Right. Thomas Bryant's getting a lot of run this year. He's playing well in his minutes, but is he an all-star talent? I don't know. Like Bradley Beal's great, and he's kind of fun to watch, but it almost kind of feels like a practice, or I can't think of the right way to phrase it, but a practice in futility with Beal, in that that even though he's playing close to 40 minutes a lot of nights right now and putting up 34 points, scoring, he's doing so great with assists this season as well, being more of a distributor for the Wizards. It's just hard to see like where this leads to, because that they're not making the playoffs this year. And it almost feels in some ways pointless for Beal to be playing as much as he is. But if you're playing fantasy basketball, you certainly love the fact that Beal's getting as much run as he can handle.
Right. And he's going to be a high volume shooter the way this team is currently constructed. I think after Harden, he's going to be right there in terms of the high level of shots taken and on high point nights. You
know what would make this team more interesting for me is if they just start Troy Brown at point guard, bring Isaiah Thomas off the bench, and then start Davis Bertans at small forward. Or even get crazier and maybe start Mo Wagner at power forward and start Hachimura at small forward. It's like other than Bradley Beal, let go of any hope of these veterans like being a big part of your rotation every night. Just lean into the few younger guys you have, because you're already pretty much leaned into them. But then the pedal comes off the gas, or the foot comes off the gas a little bit when CJ Miles has a good game, and it's just like, nah, man, it doesn't matter. Other than the perspective of, if you are running this team from the front office, you might be looking at guys like CJ Miles, Ish Smith, even Davis Bertans, though I would want to keep him if I was the Wizards. Try to be signed. I'm surprised they didn't try to sign him to an extension after they traded for him, because I believe this is the last year that Bertans has on his contract. But essentially, like a guy like Isaiah Thomas, are they just trying to show that he's healthy so they can trade him? Because, like, I don't know. It doesn't really win over fans, I don't think. Then again, a lot of casual fans are like, what? No, I know that guy. Isaiah Thomas was an MVP candidate a couple of years ago. Right. That's the guy I do want to watch. So Sometimes I think we can get caught up in what may be, and it will lead to us not appreciating what is. And it is cool to see Isaiah Thomas looking healthy and getting minutes. So good for him.
Back to Bertans for a second. I put him at number 2 in worst hair in the NBA.
Why?
Because it's bad, man. It's really bad. It's a huge red flag. It's bad.
I don't think I've paid too much attention to Bertans' hair, though I will make a point to next time I see him.
Yeah. Okay. So number 1, Alex Caruso, worst hair in the league. Number 2, Bertans, and number 3, I'm gonna say Charlie Brown has the third worst hair in the NBA for the Atlanta Hawks.
It's Charlie Brown Jr., brother.
Irrelevant.
Charlie
when you
Brown
said that, all I heard was wah, 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 wah.
Good one, brother. Yeah, I don't really have a big opinion on that, but I will. I'll catch up on my NBA hairstyles and get back to you.
Okay, it's a style league.
It is a style league. All right, you ready to do the next game?
Yeah, let's move on. We got the Nuggets beating the Grizzlies in Memphis, 131-114. Nothing too big from this one other than, I guess, Jamal Murray had a big game.
Yeah, Jamal Murray had 39 points on 14 of 24 shooting, 7 of 12 from three-point land, 4 for 4 from the line, 8 assists, 3 steals in just 31 minutes. Blowout, huge blowout for the Nuggets over the Memphis Grizzlies. And the fourth quarter was pretty much just the bench units playing against each other because it got so bad.
Yeah, not much from this one. I mean, 9 points and 5 rebounds, 8 assists from Jokic, and he played only 26 minutes?
Yeah, we've seen Paul Millsap having a really good stretch of games right now, it's just fun. It's interesting to see. I don't know if he'll keep it up. Maybe I'm discounting Paul Millsap too much this year simply because he was limited last season coming back from wrist surgery. Maybe having a healthy offseason has put him in position to play more this year. But it's just weird to see the Nuggets giving Paul Millsap kind of a bigger role this season in the early going, because during the preseason, there was an interview with Millsap where he was essentially saying like, hey, look, man, if they want to rest me any games, I'm all for it. So, which as a vet, why not? You don't need to go out there and bang up your body anymore, especially with this Nuggets team. They've got so much talent on it that they're going to make the playoffs, even in the West.
Yeah. As an NBA fan, you're looking for fun young players from each team. If you're a Nuggets fan, I think Michael Porter Jr. is that guy. That bench young prospect that you want to see play more. And he had just 13 minutes tonight, was 0 for 4, but he was plus 13. But I think everyone had a pretty nice plus minus who played much of any time at all.
Will Barton's gotten off to a good start this year, but I'm still frustrated by the fact that Michael Porter Jr., that's how his name goes, isn't starting at small forward for the Nuggets just to open the season. This guy already missed an entire season of his career. And that's one less year of control that the Nuggets have with him in a position to see what he is and what he can become. Also, this is also a player who, dealing with injury for a whole season, dealing with injuries in college, I don't want to run the chance of Michael Porter Jr. getting injured practicing or waiting to get into games, and then we never find out what he is as a player. We never find out if he's our small forward of the future. I think sometimes it's a gross miscalculation of teams to be too patient with certain players. We already know what Will Barton is. He should probably be a starting shooting guard or a six-man in the league. I don't think that he's a starting small forward in the NBA. Will Barton's not big enough to guard the biggest small forwards out there. He's not. You need better defense at that position in this league, or you need a great scorer like Michael Porter Jr. Plus, Porter Jr. is a big dude. He may not be, overly bulky and strong, but he's 6'10". He's moves so fluidly for somebody that size. I just don't know why you would be wasting time to see what he is, because if he gets injured, then what? You lose a whole nother season without seeing what he is. See what he is now while you have the chance. Also, build that rapport with the starting unit, because you're not winning a championship with this team unless a guy like Michael Porter Jr. takes another step or you make a trade. This is a really good Nuggets team. It's not a championship team.
Yeah, I'm with you on all accounts there that the Nuggets aren't set up on the wing to win, to go deep in the playoffs again in the West. I think last year, similar to the Blazers, I think they kind of shot the moon, and I don't know if they're as good yet. But yeah, Michael Porter Jr. should be 20 plus 25 minutes a game, starting small forward. And Barton, like you said, would be a great sixth man. He's like a perfect sixth man. Yeah,
because he can do everything, and he's aggressive, and that's what you want out of a sixth man. But you don't want a Will Barton guy in there when you've got Nikola Jokic and Jamal Murray already in that lineup. And plus, Paul Millsap has the ability to do a little bit of facilitating if he has the ball in his hands at all. Will Barton's just, I think he's he's something jammed in the cog, like I think Michael Porter Jr., even starting Jeremy Grant as at one of the forward spots with Paul Millsap, so that you just have more defense in there, and you can also lean more shots into Jamal Murray, Nikola Jokic, and Gary Harris. Plus, Jeremy Grant's not, he's not going to have the ball in his hands a lot trying to do stuff. He's going to catch and shoot. He's going to make cuts. And your defense is going to be better with Jeremy Grant out there. Because guess what? Jeremy Grant's the kind of guy that you'd put on one of those big, small forwards that all the really good teams have that win championships. So you'd have somebody to defend out there. Anyways.
Yeah, I think we can move on from that game. Let's go.
Hold on a second, pal. Jaren Jackson Jr. hit a career-high 5 3-pointers.
Oh, Jesus. I didn't see that.
Yeah. So...
that's a big deal.
Brandon Clark was 8 of 8 from the field for 19 points off the bench in just 24 minutes. Guy's really good, but it's just hard to see a huge role from game to game for Brandon Clark as long as Valanciunas and Jaren Jackson Jr. are healthy for this team. What do you think about Ja Morant so far this year?
I own him in fantasy.
Nice.
I'm a big fan of his. Loved him in college. He also sadly eliminated one of my 2 favorite college basketball teams just last March. Those 2 basketball teams played each other today. The Badgers beat Marquette. But seeing Ja Morant play in the NCAA tournament, I think he had a triple-double with 20-plus points. I mean, he can shoot the 3. He can dunk. He's got crazy handles. He's already had a couple plays that you just see how talented he is. And he's just figuring out the NBA. I think when it slows down for him, he's going to be so good. I think he can be like a 2010 and 4 kind of guy. Like I think he's seriously amazing. Once the Grizzlies have a few better fits around him, like I'd say a better 3-and-D wing, and then Triple J starts hitting threes like today. I mean, that's a big deal, man. I'm excited about that. But right now, the way they're currently constructed, I'm not a huge fan of their roster. Love Jay Crowder though.
Really?
Yeah.
That's
he's
weird.
A Marquette guy. He's a Marquette.
Yeah, you're right.
Okay, so that's a big part of it.
No, I mean, I've been blown away by Ja. If he was on a winning team, I was gonna probably say something stupid like he might be an all-star this year. But he's just been so good. He's had some opportunities to shine, and he's created those opportunities because he plays aggressively, because he plays with confidence. There's really not much not to like about what we've seen from Ja Morant to open the season this year. And I think you have to consider him the favorite to win Rookie of the Year right now until we see how Zion looks when he gets back.
Absolutely. I mean, he's got the balls in his hands in every play. He's got a jump start now with Zion being injured. And it's only going to go up from here. So I think he is going to be Rookie of the Year. He really is. There's a lot of similar aspects to him and Trey Young, just like from last year, just being, having the ball in your hands so much, being such a good shooter. And there's some fun similarities there. But obviously, Ja Morant, so much bigger. You can get the dunk from him. I think he can be a better defender. There's Ja Morant, man. I'm so excited about him.
Oh yeah, I think Morant can definitely be a better defender than Trey Young, but but obviously not as good of a shooter, but just gets his buckets in different ways by going to the rack. But and that's not to say that Trey Young doesn't go to the rack, because he does. He makes crafty layups all the time. Yeah. Morant's just more of a visceral attacker of the rack. Yeah. He'll seek out that contact a little bit more, seemingly. I don't want to discount Trey Young seeking out contact though, because he does a really good job of contorting his body to make things happen. Man, Trey Young's so cool.
Yeah, they're both like the fun young point guards right now. Yeah. And if the Grizzlies or the Hawks are on, even if there's teams that are contenders, it's hard not to put those teams on, because you get to see them, the fun young players, and because they're point guards, they always have the ball in their hands. So it makes it even easier to watch.
Valanciunas with another 2 threes. It's been really cool to see him take more 3-point shots this season and just be willingly launching them. with Taylor Jenkins as the coach there. He came over. He was on Coach Budenholzer's staff on the Bucks last season, and before that was working on the. I think he was with Budenholzer with the Hawks too. So, anyways, but yeah, they're definitely using a very similar. The Grizzlies are using a very similar offensive system to what the Bucks use. So, and with that, it's 5 out. So that means Valanciunas has to be out there shooting threes, and that's what they do with them, and it's fun.
What Lord of the Rings character would you say Jonas Valanciunas is the closest to?
Wow, dude, that's a great question. I don't have an answer for you. Did you have one in mind?
No, I've got nothing. I've actually never seen the movies, but he's still in search of that ring.
Okay. Valanciunas is in search of the ring, or Frodo? Who are you talking about here?
I don't know. Maybe he's Frodo.
Oh, because he's in search of that championship ring that the Raptors aren't giving him? Is that what you're trying to... Okay. Yeah. Okay. Wow, that was a stretch. All right. Next game. Golden State Warriors at New Orleans Pelicans. And, if we had told you last year about this game, you'd say the Pelicans would have gotten their butt whooped. But that was not the case here. 2 injury-decimated teams. We saw the Pelicans had just so many guys out. Brandon Ingram, Jahlil Okafor, Frank Jackson, Josh Hart, Derek Favors. So we got to see an interesting lineup with Jackson Hayes getting his first start in the NBA, played 32 minutes, put up his first double-double too, 10 and 10 with 3 blocks. What did you see from this game that interested you?
This is tough, man. With so many stars, like coming into the season, you're like Warriors plus the fun young Pelicans. We really got to see none of that with the injuries. And man, I tried to watch this game for a few minutes. Jordan Poole is a Milwaukee kid. He was the rookie out of Michigan, so I'm a fan of him. Love watching him play. He got 23 minutes tonight, but this is tough, man. This is one of those games that you wish that there was a bigger slate and other games to watch.
See, that's I guess I just like so many of the random guys at the end of rosters that I get super into these games. I thought it was awesome that to open this game, Steve Kerr, Coach Kerr from the Warriors, decided he said he was starting Draymond Green at point guard because they had Willie Cauley-Stein out at center. Eric Paschall was the power forward, Glenn Robinson, your small forward, Alec Burks, your shooting guard. And then he essentially said, he said, Draymond's our starting point guard tonight. And Kerr mentioned that the other day. He said, look, with D'Angelo Russell out, we're gonna use Kai Bowman at point guard, but we're also gonna use Draymond Green at point guard. And I get it. Draymond's always been one of their best assist guys for the last several seasons, but it's still fun to have a coach taking the quote unquote power forward and being like, he's our point guard. That's like, it's fun with LeBron this year to have him, labeled as, all right, now he's been facilitating his whole career, but we're going to call him the point guard this year and we're really going to lean into it. And I hope that we start to see a little bit more of that from the Warriors, because Green only had 4 assists on Sunday, but it was still fun to see some of the other production around that team. Eric Paschall's been super fun to watch. He really only scores, but still, 10 of 17 from the field, 30 points, 7 rebounds, 2 assists.
He was guarding JJ Redick.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
It was a bizarre game to watch. I guess from that aspect, I can see why you would be interested. And it is very reminiscent of when Boris Diaw was on the Suns, maybe a decade or a little over ago. And Boris Diaw, I think, started 1 game at every position that season for the Suns because they had so many injuries. And there was a game where Diaw was, usually a center, power forward, whatever, but he did start a game at point guard for the Suns.
It was a little bit of a surprise to see them not bring Kai Bowman into the starting lineup, since he's their only real point guard healthy on the roster right now. But Jordan Poole's got a little bit of ability to distribute, and he'd probably be called a guard, but he's more of a scorer.
He was a bum tonight, unfortunately. Poole, I think, was 0 for 7.
Yeah.
0 for 7.
But anyways, not too interesting of a game really in the grand scheme of things. I think Jackson Hayes is going to be an intriguing one to watch because if Derek Favors has enough struggles with injuries, Jahlil Okafor is just not. Look, he's not a starter in the NBA. He probably shouldn't really be in a rotation in the NBA, to be completely honest. At least if you're trying to win games. So I would love to see Jackson Hayes with the Pelicans, just spiraling away, having their season kind of spiral away. I would love to see Jackson Hayes just eventually start and just run with it the whole season.
That's going to make for the most exciting basketball, so I'm all for it.
Nickeil Alexander-Walker's had 2 good games with the Pelicans struggling due to injuries. Do you think he's going to stick in the rotation even when we get Josh Hart back, when we get Brandon Ingram back, when we get Frank Jackson back? Do you think Nickeil Alexander-Walker will end up going back to kind of the end of the bench role and possibly even sitting completely out of the rotation some nights?
As the way I don't see him in the rotation when everybody's back. He could change that over the next week or two. I mean, there's no reason to think that someone can't play their way into a role once the team is healthier, but I don't see it happening at this current time.
Yeah, it's probably hard to imagine Alexander Walker taking Josh Hart's job in the moment, but I definitely think that he has the talent to take away either Frank Jackson or Josh Hart's rotation spot eventually this season.
Frank Jackson's spot seems more likely to me.
I don't know. I like Frank Jackson. I am not the biggest Josh Hart fan though, so it's hard for me to. And honestly, Nickeil Alexander-Walker is probably better than both of them, so I really don't care which one of them gets shafted.
All right.
Let's talk about the last game of the night, baby.
That's right. What do we got? Hawks and Lakers. The Lakers, another walloping of a game.
Yeah, 101, 122. This one was over pretty much at halftime as well. So, yeah. But even with the game being over at halftime, we still saw 39 minutes from Trey Young, which is awesome. 31 points, 7 assists, just 2 of 8 from 3-point land, but he got to the line, hit 7 of 8 there. Trey Young's awesome. Damian Jones continues to start at center for the Hawks right now. I wonder how long that'll last, or if we're just going to end up seeing them go. I don't think we'll go back to Alex Len. I think that's done. They gave Alex Len a look to open the season. He didn't run away with it. The Hawks are focused on the future, which is one of the coolest things about this organization is whenever they can, they lean into their youth. They lean into developing their guys. They acknowledge that there's limited court time available for these guys to get. Here's the other thing about not playing Michael Porter Jr. in the starting lineup for the Denver Nuggets right now. He would be playing in the starting lineup for the Hawks. And you know what he would be learning on the Hawks? He gets to learn from, like, Cam Reddish gets to learn, even though Cam Reddish has been struggling to open the season, just like he struggled in college. At least Cam Reddish is getting a chance to go to try to dunk the ball against LeBron and AD. Michael Porter Jr. is not playing against the elite of the elite. So now you're slowing down his development even more by not having him play against these guys to see how good they are, to see how dominant they are, to see how they assert their will on other people. Michael Porter Jr. is not getting that experience. You can't get that from the bench. You have to be out on the court. You have to match up against these guys. You have to fail in order to climb the ladder higher. The Hawks do that. That's why they're fun. We're seeing DeAndre Hunter play tons of minutes. It's who cares if these guys struggle? They're rookies. We expect them to struggle. Last year, Trey Young, he struggled a lot to open the season, and it paid off. If the Hawks hadn't given Trey Young a wide berth to struggle, he wouldn't be as good as he is right now. And now Trey Young, even if the Hawks have a crappy record and aren't in playoff contention, he might be competing for an all-star spot already, which is just awesome.
Yeah, the Hawks, they're one of the most fun teams to watch, in my opinion. They're like my league pass team, I would say. It's, even with some of the injuries and them trying out Alex Len, which has been a bummer even last year. Trey Young is one of the most exciting players to watch. I like that you're considering him for an all-star, but when you look at the numbers, it's hard to deny. And you said earlier about how he's gotten better at taking it to the basket this year. Tonight he was 2 for 8 from 3 and still ended up with 31 points. So he can score even when he doesn't hit threes.
Yep. It's Trey Young's just, I get it. He some people may not like all the talk that happens around him, but I was a staunch Trey Young hater coming into the NBA.
I remember.
And he won me over last season in such a big way because you watch him play and he surprises you all the time with you're thinking, oh, okay, this is very, very normal NBA play. Nope. Trey Young just made some pass that made you get up out your seat, or he decided to shoot from some spot that you're just like, what?
Is there a bigger contrast in starter to backup point guards in the league than Trey Young and Evan Turner?
I don't think so.
There's nothing like what about them is similar other than the jersey that they wear. That is it.
I do love. So one of the more intriguing things about the Hawks situation from that perspective, in regards to their backup ball handlers behind Trey Young, is that they have Trey Young. He is a ball dominant facilitator, scorer. He does it all on offense. But then when you go to who's going to be the backup point guard, like you're pointing out, it's like, what? It's Evan Turner? This guy doesn't shoot the ball. He just dribbles all over the place, backs guys down in the post. He's a bigger guard. Definitely not a three-point shooter, which seems weird for this Hawks team that wants to shoot a lot of threes. But what's interesting to me is that everybody they put around Trey Young and behind Trey Young is at least capable of doing a little bit of distributing. John Collins continues to develop his perimeter skills. DeAndre Hunter, they want him to do a little bit more than what he showed in college. Cam Reddish, they've used him as the backup point guard at times. They want him to be more, a do-it-all kind of player. They brought in Evan Turner, who's not really a scorer. He's like a do-everything player. I just think that's super interesting how they've not necessarily looked for specialists, but guys who have a wide all-around skill set that they can develop. And that's really and just cool way to build a team. Especially when at the top of the pyramid, you've got Trey Young just doing a crazy amount of facilitating. So yeah, it's interesting.
Yeah, like I said, one of the most fun teams to watch, and when Collins is back, even more so. So yeah. So that I guess wraps up the games for Sunday night. Should we get into some previews?
There was nothing really interesting from the Lakers side of stuff. This was the most shots they'd blocked as a team, 14, since I think I saw like 2002 or 2003. Somebody tweeted out. So that's kind of fun little thing. Anthony Davis had 5 of those blocks. That's a big reason why.
Of course.
Let's look at
back-to-back nights they lost in the same building in Staples Center. They lost by 49 points. I think it was 150 to 101 Saturday night, and then sticking around in LA and lose to the Lakers. So 2 nights, 2 losses, 2 bad losses by a combined 70 points in 24 hours. All right, Kyle, you want to get into some previews? Let's talk about what's going on Monday.
Yeah, let's get into it, brother.
All right, first game of the day is going to be the Cavs and the Knicks. Kyle, there's some question about Larry Nance Jr. coming back for this game.
Yeah, he's got a thumb sprain. It sounds like he might miss a few games or a little bit of time, but the Cavaliers are just treating it like it's a day-to-day injury for the time being. So Larry Nance might be out again. Kevin Love is probable with his knee thing, and also because it's a back-to-back. Hopefully because Love played just 25 minutes on Sunday that the Cavs will be like, okay, cool. You don't necessarily need to rest a full game. We're still waiting for John Henson to make his regular season debut for the Cavs. When he does, maybe that'll take some minutes away from Tristan Thompson, who's been off to a pretty torrid start to the season. Elfrid Payton still remains out for the Knicks, and Mitchell Robinson is probable with an ankle sprain, but it sounds like the Fizdale and Robinson himself expect him to play.
All right. What about the Pacers in Brooklyn?
I did want to ask you, like, is there anything from this Cleveland and New York Knicks game that you're looking for? Like, Elfrid Payton's still going to be out, so we're probably going to get Frank Ntilikina starting at point guard again.
Dude, this is the dumpster fire of the night. I mean, if you look at all these games tomorrow, there's some good games.
Right, but
Cavs Knicks is the one that you hope that there's other games playing at the same time.
Well, but there's not. It's 6 p.m. game, and then we don't get another 2 games to start until 6:30. So for that first half hour, everybody on Twitter is going to be watching this game. And if there's one kind of positive way to look at this, is because both Cleveland and New York are absolutely trash teams, should
be a close game.
Could be a fun game. You know,
the Knicks have played 2 games that the 2 last games by the Knicks have come down to the last shot, if I'm not mistaken.
What do you think that Taj Gibson should start at center any more games, or should they just?
Dude, no. Taj Gibson is one of those players that I've always hoped is never on my favorite team. Oh. I respect what he does, but
unless he's an assistant coach, right?
Yeah, there you go. See, those are the guys who make good coaches. It's those guys who had to work really hard. They weren't like super athletically gifted. It was like the guys who were in the trenches and had to fight real hard. The Jared Dudleys, the Luke Walmarts. Those are the guys, and that's in any sport, really. I mean, it's not the star players who make the best coaches. It's the guys who had to fight to be on the end of the roster, to stick around, who barely made it out of the minor leagues or whatever. I mean, that's just kind of how it goes. But, yeah, Cavs Knicks, I'll watch for a few minutes. I'm just waiting until that next game to tip. I feel bad saying it, but, man, that's the worst game of the night, I would say. But like you said, it should come down to the last shot, because both these teams are pretty awful.
I'll be playing some terrible pickup basketball during that whole game, so I won't have to watch it.
I'd rather watch your terrible pickup basketball than the Cavs and Knicks.
Man, I do some funny stuff. You would enjoy it, although you've seen it before, so it probably would just be like, Jesus, Kyle, stop.
We've won a City League championship together.
Pretty sure I was on the bench complaining about my playing time.
All
right, next game, Charlotte at Toronto. Is there anything here that you're looking for? It looks like Serge Ibaka's still out, Kyle Lowry's still out, Pat McCaw's still out for the Raptors. The Hornets got Nick Batum back last game though, and he played 29 minutes off the bench. They also got Dwayne Bacon back after he'd missed a couple of games, and Bacon wasn't even in the rotation. They kept Devontae Graham in the starting lineup, which was awesome, to be completely honest.
And so the Batum return is going to hurt Malik Monk for fantasy purposes?
No, not really. The fact that Bacon got left out of the rotation last game, if Bacon remains out of the rotation, it looks like Monk is in a good position to keep some decent minutes. It might end up hurting Monk. The guy we saw hurt the most last game was Miles Bridges, actually, which shouldn't sustain. I mean, you would think
I don't expect that to continue.
No, they're pretty much they're invested in him playing a lot of minutes this year. So seeing just 14 minutes out of Miles Bridges last game was like, whoa, what's going on there?
And the Hornets are kind of hot right now, right? They've won 2 games in the last 10 seconds, I believe, over starting at the end of the last week.
Yeah, Devontae Graham hit the game-winning 3-point shot, I believe, with 2.1 seconds left against the Knicks in their last game. So that was pretty cool to see. Or maybe that was 2 games ago. Anyways.
With the injury to the Raptors and the Hornets, I think I saw the line was at 9.5. I think the Hornets got a good chance to cover.
It's probably going to be hard to do on the road, but I mean, it's possible. It's OG Anunoby came back last game for the Raptors, though. So that he might help solidify them. He was kind of tepid coming back, or a little
With
bit
the eye.
subdued. Yeah. So, but I was happy just to see OG Anunoby come back so quick, because when he got scraped across the eye by Kawhi, the way it was described in regards to the injury, it sounded like it might be bad, but he's okay, so that's good.
Yeah, people made it seem like it was pretty horrendous on Twitter, but glad that he's only missed one game.
Faux show.
Bucks at Bulls. These two teams just played the other night. The Bucks beat the Bulls. The Bucks.
Oh, hey, down. we had another 6:30 game still. I'm sorry.
Did we? Oh,
yeah, we had Indiana at Brooklyn.
Oh, okay.
Domantas Sabonis is questionable after he like jumped up and landed on another player and hit the right side of his hip and left the game very briefly in the Pacers' last contest. Was able to play through it, but he's got a bruised right hip and is questionable for Monday. Jeremy Lamb's questionable with his sprained left ankle, but they've pretty much been keeping Jeremy Lamb out lately until they know he's good to come back. So it might be another game out for him. Malcolm Brogdon's already been ruled out with a lower back issue. He started having spasms in his back 2 games ago, didn't play last game. TJ McConnell, their backup point guard, is out. He's questionable with sore groin. And then from the Brooklyn side of things, Kyrie Irving is questionable with his right shoulder impingement. So could be another just really weird game if we end up having Aaron Holiday and Justin Holiday starting the backcourt again together like they did last time.
All right, can we move on to the Bucks and Bulls?
Yeah, Bell.
So the Bucks and Bulls just played each other Thursday night. The Bucks were down by 1 at half, but ended up winning by 9. I am not a big Boylen fan. How do you feel about the coach of the Bulls, Jim Boylen? I have a theory. I think he'll be fired by February.
I don't really care for Boylen for the most part, but it's also, and some of that just has to do with the way he talks to the media. He comes off like a worse version of a Tom Thibodeau almost. Maybe that's just because he's a roly-poly old guy. But it's, I don't know. I don't have a lot of faith in Jim Boylen figuring things out with the Bulls, but it's tough because I don't necessarily think that any coach they bring in is going to run away with this roster and be a playoff team with certainty. Like Zach LaVine and Lauri Markkanen are good at what they do in some respects, even though Markkanen's really struggled to open the season, though some of those struggles could be on the fact that he was dealing with there was some kind of like a torso injury that he was dealing with.
He looks bad, man. He has bad body language. He knows he sucks right now. He had 11 points and 8 rebounds, and it looked like much worse than that, but he does not look good right now at all. I think Boylen's ruining him.
I think Boylen definitely doesn't. Look, I have a hard time sometimes necessarily blaming everything on Boylen, because that front office with Gar Forman and Paxson,
yeah,
there's just so many thick dudes in that organization, and the ownership. A lot of these problems with different organizations always lead back to the owner, and it's you get in a situation where the owner just keeps sycophants or people they're comfortable with who aren't good at their job in those positions for far too long in front offices or coaching positions. But with the Bulls, we've seen them cycle through coaches. They don't change their front office. And I just, how long does the success of the past carry you or give you leeway in the now? And the Bulls continue to make organizational decisions that just don't really make a ton of sense. I loved the Thomas Satoransky signing, but now they're not really using him the way he probably should be used, because they are wedging in minutes for Chris Dunn and Ryan Arcidiacono. Like, what? Why are both those guys playing? So I just don't have much faith for the Chicago Bulls to come out of. even if they fire Coach Boylan, I just don't think it really solves any of their issues, because I think a lot of their issues are systemic problems that come from the front office. But
That's fair. No, and a lot of Bulls fans will say that Garpax is the reason that they're in the situation they're in, and that's who they want to go more than Boylan. But Bulls fans, at least the perception I get, is that they're not a fan of him either.
Oh yeah, no, not at all. Nope. And it's hard, like I said, it's hard to be a fan of Boylan because he says some really dumb stuff to the media where you're like, oh my gosh, man, this guy's coaching a team. Like, what's going on?
Is there any examples that you have?
Okay. So it's one thing if, as the Bulls organization, the front office comes to the coach in Boylan and says, hey man, we want you to keep Chris Dunn in the rotation because we're trying to trade him. We have to get something back for this guy. But the reality of the situation is that when they brought in Thomas Satoransky, when they drafted Kobe White, when they re-signed Ryan Arcidiacono, when they re-signed Shaq Harrison, you've got all these guys who are like point guards by trade, but they're playing a lot of, as far as Arcidiacono and Shaq Harrison, they've got them playing in other roles that they probably shouldn't be playing in. And we had Boylan come out the other day, and he essentially acknowledged that Chris Dunn has gotten his trade value up by the fact that he's been getting a bunch of steals and playing defense off the bench. But it's like, cool. You're literally playing a guy, not because you think it's going to help you win, but because you think that he's a trade bait guy. And you're acknowledging this to the media that somebody's trade bait, essentially. And he didn't say it so boldly, but if you read between the lines and what he said, he talked about Chris Dunn personally building up his own value. And it's like, what? Dude, you got to know what you should and shouldn't be talking about to the media. And one thing you don't talk about is a player's trade value in any context or any sort of sideways language even.
Yeah, I'm with you there. That's kind of the no zone. Any last thoughts on Bulls and Bucks?
Injury wise, Luke Cornett's out with a illness, and Zach LaVine is probable with a sprained right ankle.
All right. Next, we got Blazers at Rockets. This is my game of the night, other than, of course, the team that I root for, the Bucks. But you've got the Lillard-Westbrook rivalry reignited in a different uniform. And then also, Harden has no love lost with the Blazers too. He's not, no one's a huge fan of him around here either. I'm really excited for this. You've got the Rock and the Baby back and forth. One of the most exciting games last year was these two teams, Westbrook and the Thunder, going back and forth against Lillard and the Blazers. And now we get to see it on an even bigger stage, on a bigger team with another superstar there. I think this is going to be game of the night, Kyle. What do you think?
Yeah, it should be high scoring as all get out. The over-under projection is 231.5. Houston's projected to win by 6.5. Russell Westbrook's going to be back in action. He sat out the previous game to rest on the second half of a back-to-back set. Clint Capella, who's been out with a concussion for a couple games, he's probable to return. Daniel House, who took a hard fall a couple games ago and landed on his back and has been sitting out with a bruised back, he's expected to be back. Both Clint Capella and Daniel House are listed as probable. Carmelo Anthony recently agreed to a contract. Carmelo Anthony joining the team Tuesday in New Orleans. We still don't know if Portland's going to actually use him that night, so we'll see how that all goes. It should be an interesting game. I think Houston's gonna beat the pulp out of Portland, though. Portland can't. I believe they won their last game, and if I'm remembering correctly, and it was. I just don't see them coming off of that and getting a second win. They've been struggling a lot this season.
I think Portland's gonna win this game. I think we'll have to have some fun with that tomorrow. We'll see what happens.
Cool.
All right, moving on to the Spurs at the Mavs. Little Texas on Texas crime.
Yep, we'll have DeJounte Murray back for not the Mavs, for the Spurs. He sat out the previous game with because it was a back-to-back and they're not playing them in back-to-backs yet. Hopefully we see sorry, I just got really pissed thinking about all the different starting lineups that Dallas throws out at us, and I'm sitting here wondering, like, what are they going to do against San Antonio? But the Spurs have been struggling this year, and yet, despite the Spurs' struggles, they've been running out the same starting lineup, the same rotations almost every single night. Coach Popovich doesn't want to put, I think we've only seen 7 minutes total of DeJounte Murray and Derek White playing together. I don't know how you, as a coach who's supposed to be smart, puts out a starting lineup with a bunch of non-defensive players, and then you have Derek White sitting on your bench, and you don't even consider the idea of playing him with DeJounte Murray, two of the best wing defenders in the entire league. Why not put them out there? Also, you've got DeMar DeRozan and LaMarcus Aldridge, two like not really known as defensive players. You got Trey Lyles out there, not really known as a defensive player. And so the only defensive player you have out on the court is DeJounte Murray. Oh, yeah, we're limiting his minutes, keeping him out of back-to-backs to start the season to make sure that he stays healthy. But then we're going to overload him with defensive responsibility every single night by having a bunch of trash defenders playing with him. Dude, put Derek White out there. They can feed off each other. You can get out on fast breaks, get easy points through steals. You're going to... The other thing is, by not playing those two together, you're limiting both their minutes so that you can have Marco Bellinelli out there. Are you kidding me? And I love Patty Mills, but Patty Mills is old. He's a little guy, and he can't play a ton of minutes in the NBA if you want to have a good defense. So there's just a lot of things that Popovich has done this season, and it almost feels like he's either aloof or, I know how a lot of people want to say he's smarter than all of us. No, man. Nah, he's making bad decisions right now, and he needs to fix it. He needs to go back to the drawing board with this team, or not even go back to the drawing board. Just needs to drink a full bottle of wine one night, get a hangover the next day, get through whatever bullcrap he's got stuck in his brain right now, and then realize that you need to start DeJounte Murray with Derek White. And then after that, a lot of the stuff will be figured out. But, we saw last season when they were dealing with the whole calamity after Kawhi, he was so willing to start matchup-based lineups from game to game, where you'd see Pirtle in there against bigger centers. You'd see Rudy Gay in there against smaller teams so that Marcus Aldridge could start at center. Do that again this year, dude. It worked last year. Put Pirtle out there, because otherwise you're minimizing Pirtle's impact by playing him against backup units that usually feature more of those stretch centers or faster centers, which aren't good matchups for Pirtle. So then there's just so many things that Pop is doing this season that doesn't make sense, because he's not putting his players in position to succeed, because he's putting these terrible combinations out there. Not only that, Trey Lyles, I love Trey Lyles. I love that Coach Pop is giving Trey Lyles run and looks in that starting lineup. But they're pretty much asking Trey Lyles to be a rebounder and a three-point shooter. Trey Lyles is a big man who has the ability to be a playmaker, to shoot off the dribble, to be a high-volume shooter. Either give him those roles or get him out of the starting lineup, because he's not somebody you start next to a LaMarcus Aldridge. It's just not. You're not going to win. No, you don't have enough defense out there. Okay, I love Trey Lyles. I'm one of the biggest Trey Lyles fans out there. But this dude and that setup with the other players around him, bad choices, Pop. Fix your stuff.
All right, let's move on to the Celtics and Suns. What do you say?
Dallas. Yeah, we don't. There's probably not much to say about Dallas, and honestly, I'd probably just rip into Carlisle about a lot of his choices with his rotations. But okay, I do have a question for you. What do you think about? So I threw something out on Twitter the other day. Somebody asked. There was an article about Kristaps Porzingis, and it was like he's a franchise talent but not a franchise player. And I was like, "What are you talking about?" He was an all-star as a second-year player. he was injured for the last 18 months or didn't play. Like, do people not understand how good and impactful of a player he can potentially be as a 7'3" shooting guard, essentially? I get it. He plays power forward and center, but like Phil Jackson formerly called Porzingis a 7'3" shooting guard. That's not just me like coming up with something stupid to say because I use him there in 2K. But it's I look at Kristaps Porzingis and I say that guy's going to be a likely Hall of Famer. Now I put that out there on Twitter and someone wanted to quote tweet me and try to make me look stupid or whatever. But like, fine. If you don't, I get it. If you really look at who's become Hall of Fame players and you look at who's there are going to be a lot of players who, if you compared them to Kristaps, like Chris Webber's not in the Hall of Fame yet. Should Chris Webber be in the Hall of Fame?
Do I think Chris Webber should be in the Hall of Fame?
Yeah.
Yes, because it's the basketball Hall of Fame. That to me for sure gets Chris Webber in because
I feel like he's an easy one.
Yeah, he is. His college basketball career, in addition to his NBA career, Chris Webber gets in my opinion. Do you think
that Kristaps Porzingis is now the way I phrased it when I posted on Twitter was I was like, he's a likely Hall of Famer. Likely is maybe not the right word to use, but I think if you look at who Kristaps is as a player and his age and all that stuff, it's fairly easy to see that he could be on path to be a Hall of Fame level player.
I think that injuries will be the only thing that could stop him.
Why? Why do people get hung up on this with him? He tore his ACL. That's it.
I'm not saying. Yeah, I'm just.
People come back from ACLs all the time, though. You know what I'm saying? Sure.
And I'm not saying he's an injury-plagued guy. I'm saying the size that he is, the way that he plays, the player that he is. That yes, he could, I want to say easily make it into the Hall of Fame, but if he has injury history in the future, future injuries and also things with back and things like that, I've seen this happen with, big guys. It just happens, man. I mean,
I mean, absolutely. So, and there's even, I can't think of his name right now, but the guy who does, started the Locked On Podcast Network, who does the Utah Jazz one. He's done a lot of different segments on the Utah Jazz Locked On podcast where he talks about the fact that some of these guys who have these bodies that are just abnormally disproportionate and stuff like that, it leads to injuries more often for those kind of players. So that's definitely a concern, but that's possible for everybody. And like didn't Joel Embiid miss his first 2 seasons?
And then played 30 games.
Brook Lopez, a lot of the, Kevin Durant's broken his foot like 3 times. I get it.
Blake Griffin.
And these people they'll come back from injury and they'll play in like a full 82 game season with there's been tons of players who like they're injured until they're not, as Josh Lloyd likes to say from Locked On Fantasy Basketball Podcast. So, I guess I'm just all right. I guess the conversation was, I guess with his talent, do you see a path, or do you see?
Absolutely. There is no other player like him. He is the whole unicorn thing. Like he is legitimately one of a kind. We've never seen a Kristaps Porzingis. So it's those type of players who are so unique that have the path to the Hall of Fame. So
not only that,
I don't see why not. Who does what he does? I mean,
exactly.
It's unreal.
And we're not seeing all he can do right now because he's still getting his win back. He's still getting into game shape after sitting out for 18 months, which how many players sit out for like a season and a half and then are able to come back in and just play NBA basketball at their highest level? It's not going to happen. He's going to have struggles. He's going to miss a lot of shots to start the year. But we also saw him go out and have like a 5 or 6 block game a couple games ago. And there's not many players that can do that. Also, probably the most intriguing thing about Kristaps Porzingis that we're not seeing right now on the Mavs is the fact that he has the ability to dribble the ball. He has the ability to facilitate a little bit. We don't see any of that because the ball's in Luka's hands, and that's fine because that's a lot of fun. But if Luka ever misses time, I really hope that Carlisle says, hey, Kristaps, show him what you can do, brother. So we'll see.
I mean, if you think that Porzingis can't make it to the Hall of Fame, I mean, don't you just have to look at Dirk? I mean, don't you just have to look at the guy who was doing it there right before him, even just last year?
I think it's just, if you've watched Kristaps Porzingis play, and if you've seen, plus he was an all-star in his second season in the league. How many? I really do wonder. You know, it's like, do you think Derrick Rose is going to be in the Hall of Fame?
Oh, wow. Oh, that's so tough.
First reaction, yes or no?
I want to say no.
Okay, why?
But that's tough because then you think of guys like Bill Walton, you know, who did get it in.
But he was also part of those like super crazy UCLA teams, wasn't he?
That's true, yeah. So his is like career. But Derrick Rose did have one pretty awesome year.
He was the MVP. There isn't an MVP that isn't in the Hall of Fame.
Oh, okay. Oh, I didn't. Okay. All right. And so, he did it in his second or third year.
And I think anybody who watched Derrick Rose during his heyday.
Yeah.
So
I mean, he won, dude. Think about this. He won an MVP during LeBron's prime. I mean, that's crazy.
That is. Yeah. No, he was amazing. And he deserved it. But also because of the way he plays and played, his body broke down. But you got to kind of respect the fact that he laid it all out there on the court like that. It's just so sad that all of his injuries were like non-contact injuries. You know, it's one thing when you land on somebody's leg or, you know, like Kristaps twisted. I think he landed on Giannis's foot, or it was a play at the rim where 2 7-footers are going up. One of them's trying to dunk on the other one. The other one's trying to block them, and then, you know, just landed wrong. And it's like, it sucks.
Yeah.
But yeah. Oh, okay. Final Hall of Fame, worthy or not, Brandon Roy.
I loved Brandon Roy, man. I really did. He was great. I liked him at Washington. Him in college was a couple of my favorite teams to watch because I think you had Nate Robinson there.
You know what would be super interesting is he's like a really successful high school coach right now, including like didn't he like throw his body in front of people when there was like a shooting or some stuff that happened like last year? Anyways, I hope Brandon Roy gets put in. I believe he only played 5 seasons in the NBA due to his, similar to Rose, non-contact injuries. He had to get the meniscus removed from his knees, and he just ended up not being able to play through all the soreness and whatnot, or play effectively. I don't know, man. As someone who watched Brandon Roy play and some of the big moments that he had,
yeah, he was unbelievable. He really was.
He's in my Hall of Fame. I'll say that.
Yeah, he was one of my favorite players from that era as well.
Dude,
so, very sad stuff.
When I'm doing fantasy 2K drafts with my buddy Andre or our friend Andre, if whoever's picking number 91 overall when we're doing that, Brandon Roy's the first one picked, man. He's so fun to play with. Anyways, I would like to see him get into the Hall of Fame someday. I don't care that he only played 5 years. Like, I watched him play. He was a reason to turn the game on.
So he passed the eye test for you.
Oh, absolutely. Some of those big moment shots that he had at the end of the games, and the fact that he was doing it consistently and things like that, I mean, it's fine. Maybe I'm caught up in the moment because you go and you look at the career stats from Brandon Roy, and it's only like 18 points a game. But we know he was way better than that. He just wasn't healthy enough to be better than that. So, all right. Any other games for tomorrow?
We got 3 games left. Celtics
Holy
at
cow.
Suns.
Well, Celtics playing on the second night of a back-to-back, so that'll be interesting to see if they rest anybody. I don't really think there's anybody to rest, though, considering how they're, how youthful their guys are. Should be a really interesting game. A lot more interesting than what we would have thought coming into the season with how the Suns have played. So, yeah, I'm actually very interested. And plus, Aaron Baines revenge game.
I didn't think about that. That's right.
Yep. So Aaron Baines is going for 50, yo. 50-50, the first 50-point, 50 rebound game since Wilt Chamberlain.
I know of no such person ever existing.
What about you? Anything from that game that interests you?
I'm with you. The Suns are the surprise team. Celtics coming off a back-to-back, but then again, the way they lost, they might have a chip on their shoulder, having that rim out against the Kings on Sunday. So we'll see. We'll see what happens.
The Suns have
Oubre,
5 games this
Tatum
week too.
Lineup, Oubre Tatum potential could be a fun matchup, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and the Celtics are also the team that Devin Booker dropped 70 against. So that would be it's just fun.
That.
Yeah. All right. Next game, Minnesota at Utah. Andrew Wiggins is doubtful with his illness. Shabazz Napier is doubtful with his hamstring issue that's kept him out for several games. And then Josh Okogie, who was out last game with left knee soreness, is questionable. Anything here you're looking for?
When these two teams match up, it's all about Cat versus Gobert, man. This is one of like the highlight center matchups in all of the NBA.
Shouldn't Cat be able to just play him off the floor by shooting a bunch of threes, essentially, though?
Exactly. Let's see it happen. I mean, that's what should you would think so.
But... You know what's craziest about this game is the fact that I see Andrew Wiggins as doubtful, and I'm mad about it.
Dude, he is finally. This is his year. I think it really is. I think we finally are going to see what Andrew Wiggins is this year.
It's just so. I mean, if you go back and you look at his career, we're really going to look at the couple of years that he had to spend with Tom Thibodeau, and it's going to be, if he keeps this up, if he's good from now on, it's going to be, wow, coaches really can completely ruin a player's career if they don't put them in the right position.
Yeah, or an alpha dog like Jimmy Butler. Then again, you get to the playoffs, you can't necessarily consider that a failure. But in terms of personal statistics,
Jimmy Butler may not have hated playing on that team if Thibodeau would have done things the right way and ran the offense through Cat to begin with. Because Karl Anthony Towns is one of the most efficient, best scoring big men in the history of the NBA. And the fact that Thibodeau wasn't making him the guy to touch the ball every possession was just stupid as all get out. But yeah, that's all right. We don't need to talk about that anymore.
Karl Anthony Towns' offensive arsenal this year is immaculate. He is, I mean, how smooth he looks on the perimeter, whether it's like even just step back threes, stuff you just wouldn't have thought you would need for him to have. Like, yeah, okay, spot up in the corner and shoot threes and be a solid, do all the things that you can do that got you to the NBA in the first place. But he looks so good with the ball in the perimeter. I can't believe. I mean, he's something else this year. He's upped his game too. The Wolves with Wiggins and Cat, this is going to be their biggest year for sure.
Yeah, it'll be if Wiggins is out again, it'll be, and especially if Okogie's out too, it'll be fun to see if Culver can have another good game, and just the fact that we're getting to see more minutes out of Culver. That's one of the cool things about being so into all the the depth of the rosters in the NBA is when you do have some of your bigger names sitting out. It's fun to see those end of the bench guys get a little bit more run and a little bit more opportunity to develop or shine.
I'm with you there. And actually, I think that's going to be a theme this week when we get into some of the games on Tuesday and Wednesday. So I'm excited about that.
All right, final game for tomorrow, Oklahoma City Thunder at the Los Angeles Clippers. From the Thunder side of things, Andre Roberson remains out indefinitely. Hamidou Diallo is questionable with knee soreness. And then from the Clippers side of things, we got Kawhi Leonard, questionable, and Patrick Beverley, questionable.
For me, I'm just looking for some guys who used to play for their opponents. CP3, SGA, PG13, Gallinari, all guys who played across the way in this one. Obviously, CP3, it's been a while since he played for the Clippers, but the other guys were involved in the trade this offseason.
Yep. I don't know why the Clippers have Kawhi as questionable for this game. That's It's a little bit of a bizarre one to me. I guess is this
I
neat?
put any effort of keeping up with Kawhi's injury status, or
Is
I'm
it
not
like
trying to put too
is
much
this
stock
knee
into it.
issue legitimate? I just thought that he sat out the last game because it was against Atlanta, and they didn't need him because. Oh my!
You want to know what my theory is? My theory is this: that the goal right now was to get, or beginning of the season was to get Kawhi playing with everyone else. Then have Kawhi sit out a little bit, and now it's Paul George's turn to kind of get used to everyone on the team. So it's kind of like you're switching off alpha dogs right now, and then eventually you'll have both of them playing together. So everyone, go ahead.
No, that's fine if because they're going to be so dominant this year and because they have so much depth. But
Well,
as
you're
a
not going to play
fan,
Kawhi. You know you're not going to play Kawhi a full season anyway. So kind of, knowing that ahead of time and having it built into the plan.
I just think it's obnoxious that Kawhi. I mean,
yes.
I don't necessarily think NBA players should be playing back-to-back games ever, anyways. But then
agree.
again,
Get rid of back-to-backs. How many is there? 12 per team?
I know the Clippers had 13 this year, so
Okay.
yeah, I think it ranges from like 12 or 13 to 17 or 18 right now, which is a lot fewer than it used to be, but
it is, yeah.
But it's still, that's not 13 games, that's 26 games. So
right.
And then you're gonna for Kawhi, he's sitting out at least 13 of those, so it's brutal. Anyways.
Well, hey,
anything else you're looking for from this game? Terrence Mann was great in their last game, but that was with Kawhi Leonard out and Pat Beverly out. So if Pat Beverly's out again, we might get another game from Terrence Mann. And Terrence Mann got the game ball from last game, even with Paul George being completely ludicrous last game. Terrence Mann, rookie, got the game ball. So he's an interesting player. Coming into the season or during the preseason, maybe even a little bit before that, the logo, Jerry West, had said that people are going to be surprised how quickly Terrence Mann becomes a part of the rotation. So I actually thought he was going to be a more clear part of it to open the season, but he wasn't. And that's fine because now it's fun to see him kind of breaking out in some of these games where we have guys missing and whatnot. It's like, oh, okay, cool. Even though Beverly's out and Kawhi's out, we get another cool guy to watch and see some new stuff from because, yeah, Terrence Mann, he was playing aggressive in the last game, made some very tight passes that I was sitting here watching the game with some buddies and they didn't know who the heck Terrence Mann was, and they said all of a sudden one of his passes got fired off, and there was like a woo coming from my buddy Mike, so that was fun to see.
For me, I guess I don't know, but for the Clippers side of things, they're my pick as the NBA champion. I think that they are the best team in the West, and I think they sadly will beat the Bucks in the NBA Finals.
I don't understand this at all. I mean, it's one thing if you're trying to be rational and be logical, but like you're a Bucks fan and you have Giannis and you're telling me you're going to choose to think that this other team's going to at least delude yourself a little bit to I don't know, be more of a hopeful fan. It's really frustrating living in Wisconsin and dealing with you Bucks fans who it's like you guys don't realize how good your team is. And it just annoys the crap out of me.
I do know how good this team is. I've lived through the worst of the worst. I lived through the Bobby Simmonses. The Bogut injuries, the Michael Redd resign.
That was brutal.
I've been through some bad stuff.
Well, so and that's just it.
Maybe I'm setting myself up for this, but when you have, they couldn't get through Kawhi last year, and now the team that has Kawhi has better role players and Paul George.
Hold on. They were up 2-0 in that series, almost won the third game.
Very true.
Okay. And then they got found out. But that was the first year of Budenholzer coaching that team. And Giannis is hitting pull-up threes now. It's Giannis, man. Giannis is better than Kawhi. Giannis is better than Paul George.
He can't guard both of them.
All right, the Bucks need to find some way to get back-to-backs put into the playoffs.
There you go.
That's how you stop Kawhi.
Yes, very good. It's the only way.
Yep.
Well, we'll see what happens, but I'm excited. And right now, as it stands, Clippers will be my favorite for the NBA champion.
Well, I don't think either of us expected a 6-game Sunday to lead to however the heck long this podcast has been.
Yeah, over an hour and a half. Well, you know what though? We had a lot of first opinions to get out there, I think.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Now we can roll with a little bit now that people know that, you hate Luke Walton and I'm not a big fan of watching the Knicks and the Cavs.
Yeah, but hopefully you get to check it out a little bit tomorrow, and then it's going to end up being like the best game of the night for you.
The best thing is we get to do this all again tomorrow.
Yeah, we do. All right. Cool. I guess thanks to everybody for listening to our first show. I had a lot of fun, Anthony. Thank you so much. Thanks for putting up with any of the quirks and things that we're ironing out in finding our way here.
Yeah, and I think things will develop more and more as we go on. The goal is for us to do 5 nights a week, so you guys can catch us after the games are over each night, or throw us on in the car on the way to work in the morning and find out what happened the night before.
So we got a logo made up from our friend Zach.
Yeah,
does Zach have a website
Wagner.
or anything?
He does. Go to @Zach Wagner. You can go at Twitter @Zach Wagner Art, or
that's Zach with an H.
Yes, Zach with an H, and ZachWagnerArt.com. And he's got all sorts of good stuff. Check him out on Instagram. That really is the place where he really shows his vast repertoire of art. And we're so lucky that he's helped us out with a logo.
We'll create some screen shares for next episode so that we can show you a little bit of his at the end of it. But he made up an awesome logo for us, and we're excited because it embodies what the title of the podcast is, which it's Morning Hoops, but it's a basketball that looks like a sun coming up, sunrise. It's cute. You sent it to me in text, and I was like, oh.
I was very happy. I really got goosebumps with I was very, very excited about it. Zach always does a great job. I worked with him on another number of different artistic ventures, and he always comes through. So big fan of Zach. Check him out, Zach Wagner Art.
Well, Anthony, do you have like 5 minutes? Are you still okay if we tell everybody about us a little bit here at the end of the show?
Yeah, we can. Sure. Okay. You want to do a get to know your host?
Yeah. So this is we're pretty much done talking basketball for right now, but I guess to explain who the heck we are, if you've listened this long, you want to go ahead and go first, Anthony?
Yeah, I'm Anthony Denu. I am from Madison, Wisconsin, hence me being a huge Bucks fan. Right now I live in a suburb of Portland, Oregon, and the last 4 or 5 years I've spent working for a radio station just outside of Madison back in Wisconsin called 103.5 The Sun. There I hosted a slew of different radio shows from different topics like a morning show or professional wrestling or
sports play-by-play.
Sports play-by-play, doing basketball and also some baseball. And I think there was a reggae show and some TV in there as well.
Very cool. And I am Kyle McKeown, and I have worked in the fantasy sports industry covering basketball for the last 10 years. I was the managing editor for all of the NBA content over at rotowire.com for several years. I started and founded the RotoWire Fantasy Basketball Podcast and then the Daily Fantasy Basketball Podcast after I left RotoWire. I currently work for basketballmonster.com, which is a premium fantasy basketball site that you can subscribe to get projection sets that are updated constantly. Every night after the games, we review things. We do box score comments that we offer to the subscribers. And it's just got tons of tools to help you manage your team so you can understand the best way to strategize how to win your leagues. So, yep, that's pretty much what I do now. Find me on Twitter at RotoKyleNBA. I guess where we met each other at the YMCA here in Madison, Wisconsin. When I first moved here, it was a extra job that I had gotten. Hey man, free membership to go shoot hoops and work out. And I think us working together at the YMCA was kind of you came up with the morning hoops name for the podcast, which I thought was great because, well, it's for one thing, it tells people when the podcast is. It's in the morning or late at night so that it's available in the morning. And we both used to play morning hoops up at the YMCA, and it's just kind of like one of those things that if you've done it consistently, waking up at 5 a.m. or 5:30 a.m. so you can get to the gym by 6 to play hoops against a bunch of broken down other old men, they become your friends and your family in some respects. So I think I just have a very warm idea of what morning hoops embodies.
Yeah, absolutely. Some of those were some of the most fun games that I've ever been a part of were some of those morning hoops games that we would play in. And, was 10 years ago, I think, that you and I met at the YMCA. So we've been friends for a long time. We've worked together at multiple jobs. I worked for you at RotoWire, and we were even roommates for a while.
Yeah. And I wouldn't admit this in a legal situation, but I once accidentally set Anthony on fire.
He says accidentally. I say he held a lighter to the back of my shirt.
It's not my fault you have greasy clothing.
This is false, ladies and gentlemen.
I barely flicked the lighter and the flame just went up his back. You had long hair then too. I just started beating the crap out of him in the back. He was like, "Why are you in my room beating me up?" I'm like, "Because I set you on fire."
Why is it hot in here? Yeah, those are great times. So anyway, I moved more than 2,000 miles away from Kyle, and now we have a podcast.
Tell him what you were doing before your current job. Tell him why you moved out to Portland.
Okay, so I moved out to Portland because Wisconsin winters sucks. But once I got to Portland, I got a job as a traveling announcer. I was announcing baby pig races up and down the West Coast at different county and state fairs and barbecue challenges and things of that nature as a traveling entertainer living out of an RV carrying a trailer full of baby pigs.
That's awesome. Can you, if I put you on the spot here, just feel free to say no, but
sure.
Can you give us a quick sample of like what your call would be for one of the races? How long would a race last?
They last no longer than 11 seconds.
Wow.
Then unless something has gone wrong, which means the pig has escaped the course, which is pretty easy to do, but they are very smart, very well trained. I was part of the training and the vaccinating, all sorts of things that I can now put on a resume. I'm not going to give you a sample yet, but I think that in the future I'll have something ready for you from that I put into and wrote into for my pig show.
Okay, I mean, but you would like come up with like fancy nicknames for all these pigs and stuff like that, right?
Yeah. Amy,
you would really ham it up, huh?
I would really ham it up. Yeah, there was any sort of hog innuendo or anything. I mean, I used it.
Cool. Very cool.
We'll get into that more as I'm sure as the show develops.
I like it.
Yeah.
All right, cool.
I actually got my shirt on right now. I'm wearing the All Alaskan Racing Pigs.
Yeah, let's see your boobs. There we go. You never sausage a show? You never sausage a show? Saw such a show. Sausage a show. That's pretty good. That's punny.
Yeah, very punny.
All right. Well, an hour and 45 minutes. I think we did it.
I'd say, yeah, the first episode I think is officially in the books. Well, Kyle, thank you so much for joining me. I look forward to Monday night's slate of games.
Holla holla. Thanks a lot, brother. We love you guys. Thank you, everybody. Again, follow me on Twitter at RotoKyleNBA, and you can Venmo me at Kyle McKeown16. I need coffee.
All right, folks. I am Anthony Denu, and you can find me on Twitter at Anthony Denu. We'll see you tomorrow night.
Bye.